Before you begin this presentation, you should have read the article available on the course site titled, "It's a Job for Parents, Not the Government" by John Romano. This presentation will be a think aloud model of how to analyze an argument by applying the critical questions. In this presentation, I will be illustrating the thinking process involved in the critical reading of the article by stating aloud my thinking as I read each paragraph. This review is an effective model for you to follow for the upcoming exam. So let's begin. These are the critical questions that I will be attempting to answer as I analyze the author's argument. What is the issue? What is the author's conclusion? What are the reasons? What words or phrases are ambiguous? What are the value conflicts and assumptions? And what are the descriptive assumptions? By asking and answering these questions, I will have a thorough understanding of the author's position, as well as the underlying assumptions upon which his argument is based. Having read through the article once, I already have an overview of what the author is discussing. It is clear that while the author mentions a few possible issues, the one for which he provides the most support is the issue of whether it should be the government or the parents who regulate what children watch on TV. The author clearly states in the title of the article, "It's a job for parents, not the government." As I read each paragraph, I will annotate by underlining reasons, picking out ambiguity, and making notes in the margin regarding any of the critical questions. You may want to pause each slide to read the paragraph on the left before listening to the think aloud. This paragraph talks about the studies that seem to show that watching violence on TV made kids violent. This is not necessarily the case, since the studies showed correlation, not cause. This paragraph also points out how much violence children witness. During my first reading of the article, it seemed like perhaps one of these issues were what the author was going to discuss. However, once I read the entire article through, it became clear that the question the author focuses on is whether the government or parents should regulate what children watch. There are no reasons to support the author's conclusion in this paragraph. Since the important ambiguities come in the author's argument, I will not look for ambiguity in this paragraph. This paragraph continues to expose the problems with violence on TV and how it may be affecting children. It also brings up the point that parents aren't always available to regulate what their kids are watching on TV. Latchkey kids are kids who come home from school and spend some hours alone before their parents come home from work. These kids may be watching TV unsupervised. Again, this paragraph does not contain reasons that support the author's conclusion. In this paragraph, the author begins to provide reasons why the government should not regulate TV violence. He first discredits the studies that were being introduced, and then explains why government regulations should not be implemented based on these studies. He obviously values studies that show cause over correlation. This is something I would write in the margin, so I have made it bold type in the think aloud box. There are two reasons in this paragraph. I have underlined the reasons. These reasons contain some ambiguity, which I have highlighted in red. The author also makes the assumption that the study's results were unreliable. He must believe this, or it wouldn't make sense to say that the study shouldn't be used to prove that violence on TV makes kids violent, thus giving the government more reason to step in and regulate programming. This is another important annotation, so again I have made it bold type in the think aloud box. As you proceed through the rest of the article, I will follow the same format. Reasons will be underlined, ambiguities will be highlighted in red, and annotations that I would write in the margin will be in bold type in the think aloud section of each slide. Another reason is found in this paragraph. Here, the author talks about some rival causes for the violence that might be present in the lives of these latchkey kids that are left unsupervised. The terms neglect, poverty, and violence are all ambiguous, since they can mean different things, and the author has not provided clear definitions of these terms. The author is also making the assumption that latchkey kids suffer from neglect and poverty more than others. In this paragraph, the author discusses the public outrage at the violence that seems to be growing among our youth, and how the government is considering stepping in to regulate TV violence in an attempt to control this disturbing trend. This paragraph does not provide any reasons to support the author's argument that the government should not step in, but leave this regulation up to the parents. In this paragraph, the author admits that there are violent shows aimed at children, but again, no reasons are offered to support his conclusion about who should regulate what children watch on TV. The author supplies another reason in this paragraph regarding the positive uses of TV violence. He is making the assumption that the positive uses outweigh the negative and are important enough to be protected from government regulation. The final paragraph supplies the remaining reasons. The author speaks about the need to protect our nation's creativity, although he doesn't clearly define the term. He is also making the assumption that our creativity cannot be protected without allowing violence on TV. In addition, he states that no government can spare its citizens the job of being good parents. In this case, the author assumes that good parents are parents who regulate the TV viewing of their children. The author values parental responsibility over government responsibility. The author goes on to use an analogy by comparing the idea of regulating TV with a book burning. He believes this is both violent and obscene. Violent and obscene are also ambiguous terms. The author makes the assumption that book burning is the same as regulating TV. Finally, the author states that this idea is un-American. Long time is also ambiguous since we don't know how long this means. The author assumes that being American means allowing all forms of expression, including violence, on TV. The author values freedom of expression over the protection of minors. Having critically read the article one paragraph at a time, I am now able to answer the critical questions and analyze the argument. I have identified the issue and conclusion. I have found numerous reasons and many descriptive assumptions that link them to the author's conclusion. I have recognized ambiguity in the reasons. I have identified the value conflicts in the argument and found the author's value assumptions. So now let's review what I have discovered. The issue is, should the government regulate TV programming to protect children from viewing violence? And the author's conclusion, as clearly stated in the title of the article, is, it's a job for parents, not the government. The reasons include, the studies were at best controversial and at worst unscientific because they showed correlation instead of cause. When the making of public policy is at stake, correlation masquerading as cause is not only foolish, it's dangerous. Latchkey kids may have circumstances of neglect or poverty in their lives that might bring violence into their lives in ways other than TV. Counting up the number of undifferentiated incidents of violence on TV is misleading. It lumps together the egregious uses of TV violence with its positive uses. The vigor of our nation's creativity must be protected. No government can spare its citizens the job of being good parents. If you don't want your kids watching, turn the darn thing off. These days, the public, goaded on by politicians, seems like it's warming up for a book burning, and the idea of holding a book burning in the halls of Congress is truly violent and obscene. It is the most un-American thing anybody has thought of in a long time. In these reasons, I have found the following ambiguous terms. At best controversial, at worst unscientific, foolish, dangerous, neglect, poverty, violence, creativity, good parents, violent and obscene, un-American, and long time. The value conflicts and assumptions include parental responsibility versus government responsibility, which could also be expressed as individual responsibility versus collective responsibility. The author prefers parental responsibility or individual responsibility. The author prefers freedom of expression over protection of minors. The author prefers cause over correlation. The author prefers tradition over change. And the author prefers creativity over control. The descriptive assumptions include the study results are unreliable. Latchkey kids suffer neglect and poverty more than others. The positive uses of TV violence outweigh the negative effects. We can't protect our creativity without allowing violence on TV. Being a good parent means monitoring the TV selections of children. Regulating TV violence is the same as banning books. And being American means allowing all forms of expression, including violence, on TV. Now that we have identified the author's argument, let's see if we can apply this knowledge to answer the following questions about the article.